So I've just laid out in front of you the materials that I'll be using to make this cute little tree. So we've got green carded wool. This is actually Corriedale. It can be any carded wool that you can get your hands on. And the great thing about this project is that you can basically use whatever you fancy. So I've got some of these, I don't know what wool it is, but it's basically some wool locks that I hand dyed green, which adds a nice texture and variation. I've got some recycled sari silk, which adds again a little bit of texture and a bit of dimension to it. I've got 2 different colours of Angelina fibre, just to add a little bit sparkle, because you have to have sparkle on a Christmas tree. We've got fabric interfacing, which just helps to stick it all together. We've got a felting brush. If you've got a specific felting brush, then use that. This is just a clothes brush that I found in a charity shop. And it's actually perfect for what I want, because I'm actually going to be felting thin strips to start with. So this is absolutely ideal for what I want. So I'm going to just clear the decks, have everything close to hand, and let's get going with playing. So what I started off doing first, I've tried over quite a few years. Well, no, I've tried a couple of times just to come up with different ways of creating Christmas trees, and I was specifically asked to make one this year, and this is going to have a string of lights or those embroidery baubles that will go around it at the end. So I had sort of put my thinking cap on and thought, what's the best way of making this? So what I did is I found a really nice stick when I was out walking with the dogs, and then what I've done is I've just wrapped some core wool or cheap whatever wool that you've got that you don't mind having as a base, and I basically built that up into a cone shape. So I've wrapped more around the base and then tapered it to the end to create this little tree shape. And then I'll show you how I went about making this sheet of felt and then cutting the leaf shapes out and then felting them on. So let's get going. So we're going to use the felting brush first, and yes, what I'm going to do first is just pull off a very, very thin layer of the carded wool first. Now we want this quite thin just because the leaves on the tree, we don't want them too thick. Well, I don't anyway. If you want them slightly thicker, then by all means do that. This is just your opportunity just to freehand and experiment and have a go and just experiment. That's how we learn, and this is how I've learnt how to do this, is just fiddling around and testing things. The first tree I made a while ago was a disaster, so I knew that wasn't going to work. And because obviously I've been working a lot on my feather technique this year and leaves as well, I just thought, well, I'll adapt that technique for this. And so, yeah, that's what it's all about, is just playing around and just experimenting. So what I'm now going to do is just take some of these green locks and then get my scissors. And I'm just going to, in fact, I'll move that out of the way just so I've got a flat space. And in fact, so it doesn't go onto my felting surface, I'm going to put it onto this greaseproof paper. So I'm just snipping this into short lengths. And the reason I'm doing this is just so that I get little flashes of this green. You might want to just have the whole lock draped across it, like like this if you want. And in fact, just to show you the difference, you can have it like that, so that it's just adding a little bit of variation. And then this that I've chopped, I'll just spread this out so there's clumps of it. This is all going to get felted in, so it will all merge together. So yeah, it's just having a bit of fun. Just seeing how it all pans out. I'm going to put a little bit more of this. I don't want the white in it. So I'm going to pop that there, and then I think I'm going to use some Angelina. So this is a lime green, I think, and I'm just snapping this. Angelina is nice and sparkly, but it is plastic. So I make sure that I keep it well away from anywhere that's going to get, that it's going to go into the water course, just so that I'm not going to pollute anywhere. And then a brush up after myself. So I'm just adding a bit of sparkle, different colours, spreading it out so you don't get clumps. If you want clumps, you can keep it clumpy. I want it just to have a slight shimmer. And then I'm going to do the same with the recycled sari silk. Again, you can chop it up if you want to chop it up, or you can just do what I'm doing here, which is just teasing it out so that you get individual fibres and flashes of colour across this piece. And just lay it down gently. So just building up this layer. But you can see it's still quite thin. I'm not overloading this piece. Right, okay. Getting a bit fly away. Right, now you can either use a single needle or a multi-tool that's got 2 needles. I'm actually using, it looks quite brutal, but it's pretty safe. But if you're going to use a multi-tool, just be very conscious of taking it slowly and just keeping your fingers away and just going in and gently in and out of your brush. Now, one thing I should mention is that this can be done on a felting mat as well. You don't need a brush, but I just find the brush is very handy. It takes the strain away, and it protects your needles as well. But you can see that I'm not twisting or my needle felting action is just straight up and down. There's no twisting my hand as I'm felting, which is the reason that your needles break, is that your felting action is a little bit erratic. But you can see that I'm just straight in and out. And once you're a bit more confident with your action, then you can speed it up a little bit. We don't want to be going too manic. But what we're trying to do, what we are doing, is just getting these fibres to all merge in together. And I'm actually leaving this edge quite fluffy, because it's that edge that I will be using to attach to the tree. So if there are any areas that I can see that look a little bit unfelted, I'll just concentrate a bit more on there. That looks about ready. So the peeling off is very, very important, but you have to be so careful. Just gently, because it is a very flimsy. So just gently lift it off the brush. Just taking your time, no rushing. Just don't yank it off, because it will disintegrate So you can see that I'm just being very gentle, and it is actually a continuous piece. If it's not, then don't worry. You can take off the bits, because we are going to be popping this back onto the brush. So if it doesn't come off in one piece, don't worry. And you can actually manipulate the piece to fit the brush. So you can see here, I'm just prizing that and placing that a little bit close together. So if you have got pieces that have come, if it goes into 2 or 3 pieces, then don't worry. Just pop them next to each other. And then I'm gonna just put another very fine layer. In fact, I'm going to go at 90 degrees to the top layer. That will just help a little bit with the... Actually, I'm thinking out loud. I'm not going to do that at all. What I'm now going to do, we're going to get rid of the brush. This is me thinking on my feet, and this is what you can do all the time. I'm actually going to go straight onto, because the reason I was doing that, I was just thinking in my head that if I then put this thin layer over the top and then felted, I would lose a lot of this lovely shimmer, because I'd be then pushing this non-shimmery through, and it would dull this down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go straight on to actually sandwiching this together. So here we're going to use our fabric interfacing and just cut it to length, to size. And it can overlap a little bit. There we go. I'm only going to use 2 pieces. Just be very gentle. There we go. And now we're going to lay these thin sections, and I won't need to do it at 45 degrees. I'm just going to layer it very thinly over the fabric interfacing. Just so that we're creating a little wool sandwich. And then any thin sections that you can see the interfacing, just add small sections. Like that. So to encase it. And then I'm going to do, in fact, I'm just going to encase that wool sandwich. So I can see that that is all encased in there. And then you can either use an iron or... Okay, so got my curling tongs here. And then we just gently run the sandwich through the tongs. I'm going to turn it over just because I'm right-handed. It's easier to get to it. It might just take a few passes just to get that interfacing to melt and fuse all of those lovely fibres together. Just take it slow. Let's just check and see if I need to do a couple more. Yeah, just give it a few more runs through. Just taking it slow. And the thing is, the thinner you can make those layers, the more likely That wool is all going to stick together. That's really why we want to try and keep those initial wool layers as thin as possible. So let's move that out of the way and let's have a check to see how our sandwich is. Now just be very careful when removing this. There we go. A lovely strip. And now we can start cutting out our leaf shapes. So I'll show you how to do that in a second. Okay, now all we need to do, I'll start off this end, is just start cutting. I usually do just run a strip down and then I'm just curving it at the end like that. And then you can make them as fat as you like or as thin. So again, it's entirely up to you. And you just keep on going down your strip in that way. And don't worry if they're not all symmetrical. You can do this freehand, you don't need a template. And once you've cut them all out, you can adjust them anyway. Just keep on going like this. And we will be putting the hair straighteners back over these once we've cut them all out, just to get a bit of a curl on them. And again, there's no set amount that comes out of a strip. It really just, that is dependent on how thick you do your strips and how long your strip is when you're making it. But you just keep on making your strips as you go and as you need, as you're filling up your tree. So keep going. It's very therapeutic, just doing this repetitive cutting. It's lovely just to see them all coming together. Just keep going. I'll probably only get another couple out of this. I've gone a bit squiffy. See, my cutting's not quite so straight. It doesn't matter. Right, the last couple, these ones are going to be a little bit shorter, no matter. And then, will I get one more? Yes, I'll get one more. It'll be quite a thin, skinny one, but that's okay. Okay. So, oh. Getting a bit mad. Right, okay. Now we go back to our straighteners. I'll show you what you do next. Okay, so we get our leaf shape. And all we do is just run them through the straighteners and then just turn the straightener in your hand and you can see how that action just adds a little bit of a kink. And it also just it just reinforces the glue. It was a bit too strong on that, but it will be all right. Be a bit gentler on this one as I'm curling it, but I will be taking the scissors back to this just to neaten them all up. Once I've done it all, I think in hindsight, I've put a little bit too much fibre, too much wool on one of the layers because it's not quite all stuck together. But it will be fine because it's building up the layers, but it will just make me I'll be more vigilant, making the layers, the further more layers that I just need to have less wool probably on the top layer, because you can see it's just a little bit fuzzy, but that's okay. When I'm attaching it, I'll sorry, excuse the dog snorting, sniffing. They're just about to start having a play fight. If you start hearing dog play noises, it'll be Angus and Sam. Actually, no, Angus is a little border terrier, just having a bit of a roll. So excuse the noise if you can hear it. Okay. So what I'm just going to do, just very gently, is just take off some of these wispy bits. Angus, shush, shush. He's wanting some attention. Sorry for the interruption. Bless him. I'm just taking that little edge off there. So I'm just adjusting the shape of some of these. It's a little bit wispy. Yeah, so that one's got a little bit too much of a kink on the side, so I'm just tidying it all up. To be honest, I'll probably leave some of these wispy bits because it's meant to be a pine tree which has got wispy bits on it anyway. Right, that's a little bit too furry. Yeah, some of these ones on the end, I think these ones on the ends just didn't get caught in the interfacing. So there we go, last one. Then I'll show you how I attach them. I shall have to clean this mat down when I've finished. I don't want green in future projects. So we go back to our tree shape, and then I'll work my way. I'll start to carry on from the bottom. So all you do is just layer up your pieces, and using some of your green, just layer your green over. In fact, you could do 2 at a time, which is what I did last time, just so that these bottom ones are just overhanging the end of your tree. And then all you do, keep your fingers out of the way, is just use that loose carded wool, just felt over the ends. Your ends are fluffy anyway, because you didn't encase those in the sandwich. And then I'll keep on going round. But what I do then for the next layer is I overlap them slightly. But that one's just so that you get that graduated. But that one's, I'm going to push that one in a little bit. Just push it in so it's a bit too far apart. So I'm just adjusting it. And this is the whole thing, is that you can adjust it as you go, and then pop these overlapping, so you get that nice sort of what are those tiled called? I can't remember. And also you're laying them slightly further up the tree so that you get that overlap. I can't remember the name of those tiles. That's my menopausal brain. That's my memory. The word won't come. They're like little wooden tiles you get on outbuildings. No, the word won't come. Do you know, once I finish doing this video, the word will come to me. So you just keep on going like that. This one I probably would have wanted a little bit further over here, so I'm just readjusting it and then felting it down. So I will show you it once it is more further up the tree, and then I'll show you it completed. Now I hope that that's been of use, but I'm not quite finished yet, so watch this space, I'll be back. So I've raced on a bit just to show you the finishing piece. So basically what I've done is I've probably used about 8 or 9 strips of the wider strip that for most of this. And then when I got to the top to make these shorter little leaves, I actually created a strip just with 1 strip of the fabric interfacing, and then cut out the smaller leaves. And what I did for the star is I just glued 2 little craft stars onto a piece of wire. I actually used some hot glue, but normal glue might be all right, but hot glue is obviously a lot stronger, so if you're going to use that, be very, very careful. And then I just popped the wire down into the center of my cone, just to add it, just to have that finishing touch. And then for the baubles, I actually used this sew on bauble craft fairy lights, and I got this from Amazon. And you could they sell it in 2 different types. You've got the round balls or the one that is sort of more tapered, and they are, if you just put in mini fairy lights, you'll just get light up fairy lights. These come under doll's house fairy lights. So if you put in fairy lights but have doll's house mini ones, then you'll come up with those 2 selections. The other ones with the tapered bulbs have got a black cord on them, so it's entirely up to your preference. These are the only ones I had. I ran out of the other ones. And then all I've done is I've started sewing. That just needs a bit of a fixing on the bottom. I started sewing at the bottom and then just wound my way up the tree, just sewing them underneath the petal or the leaves all the way up to the top. And then I will be securing it onto a piece of wood. I just need to sand that flat, and then I'll glue it onto the bottom and probably put some moss around the base, but I'll show you that once I've finished. So I hope you found that useful, and I hope you make lots of them. So here's the finished tree, and what I've done to finish it off is I've just hot glued the trunk to this piece of wood, and then I've hot glued around the base. And I had some wool locks that I'd hand dyed that was, the locks were 2 different shades of green, so I've just chopped that up to create smaller pieces, and then I've just gone around the base of the trunk with hot glue and just added the chopped up wool around there just to give it a bit of a mossy effect, but also it just hides the hot glue and it's all very secure. So I hope that you've enjoyed making this along with me, and I'd love to see your finished tree and your diorama, or wherever you've decided to put it for the festive period. And so send me a picture either at my Facebook group, you can join there, which is the Needle Felting Community, or send me a message on my social media channels, which is Helen Winter Textile Art, or even send me an email if you prefer at helenwintertextileart@gmail.com. So I hope you've enjoyed that, and I look forward to seeing your beautiful trees. All right, catch you next time. Bye.